Hi, it's nice to see you all. Everybody feeling pretty good right now because the hillsides are green. They're not quite brown. It's not too hot yet. I get asked to do a few presentations as we build up towards the fire season that we are inevitably going to be in. Just know that the area that you live in, Jackson County, has been host to lots of big fires over decades and decades and decades. It wasn't just a few years ago. It's been for a long, long time, even when I first started in the fire department. And so as we're here tonight and we're getting ready to go into another fire season, another experience again with smoke and potential fires in the area and around, this is the time to talk about these things that are a little scary. They're even scary to me because I value the place where I live and I want to keep living here. And I'm tired of being scared. So if you're like me, then let's dive into some of this tonight and we can handle some of this, okay? So I say pro tips from a responder turned emergency manager, but if you've heard me speak before, you're going to hear some of the same things, but sometimes maybe that'll spark something new for you, and hopefully I'll give you something new this year. I'm the emergency management coordinator for the city of Ashland. I think most communities are waking up to what is it that an emergency manager actually does? And so maybe the easiest touch point for any of you is that if your cell phone blows up around the Ashland area, blows up, meaning if a message pops up or somebody calls you and says, hey, there's a power outage in this area, we're expecting it to be done in a couple hours. That's emergency management working with our electric utility. If you have a water main break on your street, as we did in Tolman Creek Road just in March, which unexpected, but hey, things break and sometimes we need to fix them, you also received a message from me. If you got an evacuation notice a couple of years ago just outside of town on September 4th, 2024, just outside of town, even though that's not my jurisdiction, I was empowered by Jackson County, who was also very busy with a complete water failure in Shady Cove, and so I sent those evacuation messages. If I'm not sending you evacuation messages, I'm also trying to send you messages that say, hey Ashland, there's a fire on the north or south-facing hillsides. It looks big and scary. It's not a threat to the city. Oregon Department of Forestry is on scene and getting a handle. I'm trying to decrease the fear that we have, because we all need this information in order to make good decisions. Would everybody agree with that? So I was born in Ashland. I've got generations in the ground here, even a few over in this cemetery, pretty much every cemetery at this point. We left. My parents, when they got together, they wanted to move far enough away from their families so that they couldn't visit every day, and so we went to Alaska. And I grew up there and then didn't plan on coming back here, but as I was doing my college pursuits, my uncle, who used to work for the fire department here, called me up one day and told me that they were having a firefighter test and it would behoove me to show up. And my uncle wasn't used to using big words like behoove. And so I thought about it, and he said, well, if you did get the job, you can work full time and then also go to Southern Oregon State College and finish your undergrad degree and then go on and be a doctor or a lawyer, because that's what I thought I was going to be, because I thought that would make me money. And I got I did really well on the test, and there was physical and the written and all the things. And out of 32 people, I was third place, and they were hiring 4. And so I started my fire career as a temporary job, and that was 1990. And then it didn't pay a whole lot, but the service aspect of it and being able to do the things that we got to do and like help people every time we went out, that really spoke to me. So I stayed with it, and 31 years later, my temporary job. I graduated from it. Let's just keep going. Graduated from SOU because they changed in the mid-90s from Southern Oregon State College to Southern Oregon University. I got a humanities degree, which had nothing to do with firefighting or emergency medicine. Go figure. And then through the course of my career, I got involved just in happenstance in 911 calls that were unusual, they were hard, and I have always been a problem solver. And one in particular was 2020 with the Almeda Fire. So who here was around for the Almeda Fire? And for anybody watching online, you're free to raise your hand too. That morning, who remembers what that morning was like before the fire? What was happening? Super windy, like wind that comes from out there and blows toward Medford and makes the trees go, that's a bad day. I'm going to have a slide in here that gives you instruction on paying attention to the weather. That's what I want you to do as one of the pro tips, is pay attention to the weather. We have predictable, somewhat predictable weather around here. It's going to help you when all the firefighters are out doing other things and there's nobody other than you and maybe who you connect with. So Almeda started for my crew, my little Ashland crew. We only have 8 people on duty at any one time, and that's sub-battalion chief, that was me, and then, so I'm the 9th. And then we have a captain and an engineer, typically out here at this fire station too, and they staff either an engine or an ambulance, depending on what the 911 call is. If it's a medical call, they hop on the ambulance and the engine doesn't have anybody on it. This particular day, we were lucky. We had 4 people out here, so I had 2 firefighters on an ambulance and a captain and engineer on the engine. At Station 1, which was also my station, I had a captain and engineer on the engine and then 2 firefighters on an ambulance, so technically I had 8 people to throw at this impossible event that was going to happen. And so when the call came out, and everybody knows kind of where it was. It takes me about 7 minutes to get down to the end of Quiet Village from my Ashland fire station, driving faster than I'm supposed to in my fire vehicle with lights and sirens on. That's how long it took me to get there. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So I was first on scene. I had to coordinate the resources, and I sustained the fight for 36 hours. All of your Ashland firefighters here stood up the entire 36 hours for that event, and it was impossible. We were repeatedly beaten back. All of our tactics, all of our equipment that we thought, all of our training that we thought was going to be good enough wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. I collect the times and the memories, rather than letting that haunt me, of the times where we succeeded, and there was just enough of those that it informed my next steps. So after the Almeda event, I was like, wow. I immediately deployed to the open chain the next morning. So Almeda ended, and then I got 6 hours of sleep, and then one of the fire chiefs in District 3 called and said, hey, we're looking for more people to go to the open chain fire, because that had started the same day as the Almeda, and it was taking homes, and it's personal. And so I said yes, of course. And so there were 3 Ashland firefighters that deployed with a Rogue Valley team with other fire departments, and we fought the open chain fire for another week, and that was too much. That was too much. I was like, wow, there's never going to be enough of us. The fires are too big. Our equipment is not going to put it out for us. What do we do? And so that started informing my next career move, because I still have a lot of gas left in the tank, and I want to be useful to my community. So I'm going to have you all learn to be first responders as well at this point. So I got 2 amazing daughters. They went through the school system here. They're going to university now. These are the expensive years for me. It is one of the reasons why I'm still working. And then finally, I want to live in the PNW, the Pacific Northwest. I think I said this already, and I want to reduce my own collective fear around wildfires. We have other things. Remember when Cascadia was super scary and everybody was reading books about it? Okay, yeah, we still might get that. Remember when we flooded in 97? January 1st, 97? Yeah, we're still going to get that. Human-caused things. Do we have a lot of humans that are doing bad things these days? Yeah, we're still going to have that. Okay, well, let's learn how to deal with it. So I titled this, Who's Minding the Store? And if you've seen this talk before, has anybody seen the talk before? So back in the early 90s, I'm a new paramedic. I'm wet behind the ears, green as they come, but I'm a good medic. And I'm the lead medic now after only a few years of working at Ashland Fire, because all the older fellas with the white hair, they didn't want to do medical calls, even though that was what we were always being called to. We rarely had any fires at all. And a busy day at old Ashland Fire was maybe 4 or 5 911 calls in a 24-hour period. And the old guys would be like, oh, whew, wow, you know. And for me, I was super hungry, so we had just run 3 911 calls back to back, really helped some people, like, you know, pulled them out of cars, and like we revived somebody that they had a heart attack. And so I come back to the station, and I'm young, and I'm dumb, and I'm high-fiving my partner, and my chief, Keith Woodley, who, if you remember him, he's looking at me with kind of disgust on his face, because I'm celebrating as a young person might, which is not okay. But he's also thinking about how when we were running all those calls, there were more calls, but there was nobody to run those calls. And so he's like, well, that's great, Kelly, that you're all high on life right now for running those 3 calls. But who was minding the store? And I, of course, didn't understand because my skull was thick and I thought I was really good at stuff. But those words have followed me through my career because your Ashland Fire Department, any of your municipal or county fire departments right now are drowning in 911 calls all the time, every day, all night, all day. And so when the big events come like the Almeda, who's minding the store? Who's taking care of you? You are. So that's why, one of the reasons why I jumped into emergency management, because during the Almeda, we didn't have anybody that was minding the other part of the store, which is to try to get you all mobilized and try to get everyone to be like, okay, we kind of heard about emergency alerts, we've heard about evacuation levels, and we've practiced our plans, and here's some good information. And I've talked to my neighbors finally because we're done with COVID now, so we can talk to each other in the same space. Look at us, there's a bunch of us in a room and we're all breathing the same breath. I know. So my point is, when all the responders are responding, and that happens pretty regularly, and especially in these events, like who's minding the store? You are. The Almeda Fire was approximately 36 hours. It was nonstop. It was just a beat down from the beginning to the end, and we just had to keep getting back up and dusting ourselves off and getting back in there. You don't have to be a big, tough firefighter to do that, but you can prepare to get ready to do that if you need to. Incidents are escalating. I think you can see all over the world right now, fire is everybody's problem. I was just listening to some retired fire chief from California talking about how people think of fire as a West Coast problem, and if some people do, they're just not reading the memo anymore. Everywhere is on fire. Think about a couple weeks ago, South Carolina, Georgia. They are experiencing the biggest wildfires they've had ever. Look at Canada. Early in our season, where we're still like enjoying that there's snow on the hillsides, they're on fire everywhere. Everywhere is on fire. You know, there was a time when we had smoke in the mid-2010, 11, 12. It was probably 15. 2015 was a hard year, where everybody's like, I'm moving out of Ashland, right? Even I was thinking, gosh, you know, okay, where am I going to go? Everywhere's on fire now. So I would encourage you to stick it out here because we've got a good team. All right, and 911 isn't enough. If I haven't hit you over the head with that enough times. So what can you do? What can you do? What can I do? What can you do?
Join CERT.
You can join CERT. That's one thing. Yeah, a little recruiting tool tonight. It's actually good. Disaster prepared citizens are a good thing, and our CERT program is more than a little revitalized just in the last year. And we're highlighting the really good people that are participating in it, helping train. We'll talk about that. Do my two things. That's it. Just two. Do the pre-work and then practice, even though that's kind of two things. And then play the long game, and I'll tell you my concept on that. What's the pre-work? Three things: evacuations and routes. You live in the Pacific Northwest. You live in Jackson County, which has been host to decades of fires. It's time for you to learn your town. It's time for you to learn more than one way out. And we don't have that many. And every community on the planet is that way. So it's not unique to just Ashland. So it's time for you to learn it. You know, my dad, he was super annoying. When he would like take us places and then drive us back, he would drive a different route each time. Does anybody do that? I was so annoyed at that. But you know what he was doing? He was learning his area. And so maybe tonight, if you're on a bike or you're walking or you're driving, try learning a new street. Ashland's a small place. If you're lost here, you won't be lost for long, I promise. And you might find a place that you've never seen before and go, oh, okay, well, if the main road here gets blocked up, here's this other clever route that I can do now. All right, so evacuation routes, information management. I want you to be careful where you get your information from, but I also want you to stick to a few key sources. We'll talk about that. And finally, resource management. This is a big firefighter thing, an emergency management thing. We'll talk about my concept for that for all of us. So let's talk about evacuations. Who here has seen this before? Good, I have some A students, and if you haven't, it's okay to raise your hand and pretend that you have. I want you to learn the zones, because we have evacuation zones. These, if you're from an area that doesn't have evacuation zones, okay, it's time. As I said, lots of other places are learning this now. I was just in Boise, Idaho, talking to a bunch of people who are more like, well, what do I need evacuation zones for? And so I talked about the reason why we have those things. And wildland firefighters and the whole state of California has been doing this for decades. They divide up your land where you are into different little pieces, puzzle pieces then, that because fire is one of our most unpredictable hazards. We don't know where it's going to start. We don't always know where it's going to go. And so we have to divide up our geography a little bit. So we divide it up, I'll go more into that on the next couple slides, but we divide it up into 10 zones. The other thing I want you to pay attention to is the 3 evacuation levels in Oregon. Not all states have this yet. They have levels for other things. Oregon jumped on it after the 2020, and even before that, we had ready, set, go. And we'll talk about why that changed. So in 2021, the city of Ashland published evacuation zones all throughout Ashland. And mostly when Ashlanders do something, the rest of the valley looks at us and they do what? They go, what are those weirdos doing? And you know what's interesting is after the Almeda Fire and some change in leadership, Jackson County was like, hey, Jackson County leadership was like, hey, we need to do that too. And so working with Jackson County and the city of Talent and even the city of Medford, in Jackson County Emergency Management, we made puzzle pieces all throughout Jackson County. Now, these are easy to find if you go on your own device or go on your computer and type in the name. Does anybody know the name of the mapping program? Genesis Protect. The naming committee was out the week that they chose that name. But Genesis Protect is actually all over California, and it's kind of taken over Oregon, and it's going to take over Idaho too, which I learned when I was there, which I was like, good. It is a very quick mapping tool that shows your area. If you put in your address or you say, yeah, go ahead and while this is open, you can track where I'm at. It'll show your surrounding zones, and it's fast. And then you can learn your zones.
Is it .org or .com?
It's .com. It's Genesis. It's transposed. It's like Protect Genesis. But if you type in a search, or whatever your search engine is, and type in Genesis, there's one key to this. Again, the naming committee. It's SYS. Genesis SYS. Protect. Yeah. Again, you get a better naming committee if that's a lesson that we can all learn tonight. Okay, but it works, okay? So even though it's a badly named tool, it's a great tool. So all of these are on there. And if your little Ashland emergency manager turns a zone into a level 3 or a level 2 or a level 1, red, yellow, green, or Jackson County Emergency Management does that because they control all the stuff outside of Ashland, you will see that on the Genesis Protect mapping app. It will turn those zones green, yellow, red, so you know the areas. Okay, so I told you we have 3 levels in Oregon. And so we have level 1, level 2, and level 3, and they're green, yellow, and red. Other places, in fact, and I don't want to confuse you, but other places have green meaning go, as in go now. So that's not confusing. But in Oregon, as well as Washington, as well as California, this is our standard. So if you get a level 1 evacuation notice, whether that be someone from a local CERT team knocking on your door and saying, hey, are you aware you're under a level 1 evacuation notice? You should know that you just need to stay informed. There is a fire somewhere. You are not in immediate danger. You may be at some point, but you should pay attention. Put down whatever you're putting, your book. Does anybody read books anymore? And then have a plan. Think about the plan that I was telling you to practice. And then act early if you or loved ones need help. And loved ones can be pets. So if they need more time, then that's a good time to get their things together to get ready to go. That's a time, if you don't have a vehicle, to talk to your friend who does have a vehicle and say, hey, I got this thing, this level 1 thing. Did you get it? And they go, yeah. And you go, I know you have a big Suburban or some other vehicle or a covered wagon that you're planning on getting out of here with. Can I put my stuff with you if we need to? And then that person would say, yes, of course. Yes, of course. Okay. Level 2, a little more serious. Level 2 just means be set. You'll notice we put some actions in here. I'll tell you why. Level 2 means follow your evacuation plan. So you've thought about this because you live in an area that's fire prone, and you've learned your area because my dad was like that, and you want to be annoying like him. And you're checking the news and radio wherever you get that from. We'll talk about information sources. And then conditions could change rapidly. So a level 2 Anybody already know what a level 2 is? And what does it mean for you, level 2? Have your bag packed. It can mean put it in the whatever your mode of conveyance is, whatever you're going to take. Does level 2 for anybody in this room mean that you're just going to go? Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, and for some people that's great, because why?
Because then I'll leave more room for everybody else.
You'll leave room for everybody else. The danger is in your area. I can give you some scenarios on that at other classes and stuff too. Like if we had the Exit 11 fire just this last summer. And what ended up happening was the fire was only threatening about 2 or 3 houses in a giant zone, which was JAC, I think it's 542. It's not on this number here. But it's a giant zone. It's got about 150 people in it. But there were only 3 houses that were going to be threatened. If I turn this whole zone red, then 100 people have to flee. But if Jackson County Sheriff's, Ashland Police Department, and law enforcement can go knock on those 3 houses, then those people have been given a level 3 notification. And the rest of the zone can be aware. That can be a level 2. So if people want to go, they can. Okay? Just a little nuance there to some of this stuff. And we're learning as we go, right? But I got to tell you, we're way more practiced at it than lots of other areas. So thanks for being in Jackson County. All right, level 3, go now. It used to be ready, set, go. And if you haven't heard it before, if you saw go, what we found out was that people would see go on their device and they'd be like, go do what? Go where? And then they'd mill about and not do anything. And so the state changed the language in 2023 to go now. And that makes people move. That makes people get out of their chairs and grab their things and go. Maybe in a year or two we'll find that there's another cool way to say it. But this is what we have going into this season. Be ready, be set, go now. This one, be aware. This one, yeah, you should get ready. You should load your stuff up. And if you want to go, go. Do your plan. Think about where you want to land, right? And go now. Those are our levels. Here's what I'm telling businesses and residences now this. I worked with Ashland Family YMCA. They're the local YMCA here, best little workout club ever because they have pools and gymnasiums and yoga classes and NIA classes and all the classes. They have kids stuff. And they came to me and they said, hey, we know you're really good at all this evacuation stuff and we know that everyone has an evacuation plan and we don't. Can you help us? And I said, actually, you're the first business that's approached me directly. Let's work together. And so what the YMCA did was create a level 1 plan for the YMCA. Now the YMCA is complicated, as lots of us are. They have their main place right here in town. They have Camp DeBoer up at Lake of the Woods with lots of kids and adults up there. They have a preschool in Talent and a preschool in Phoenix and soon a preschool somewhere in Medford. So they have people all over the valley. So for a level 1 evacuation sent to an area that one of their sections is in, they have to understand, like, what are the employees going to do? Are they going to stay open for the day? Are they going to close? And so we actually made their plan for all 3 levels, and then we got to practice it together. They had me come in and run them through a scary scenario, and then their people who have to make those decisions at that time ran through it. It's a good plan. They share it freely for businesses that want to see, like, how do they make an evacuation plan? And I think the most recent one that we managed to get is the Ashland Community Food Bank is also developing one based off of what the YMCA did. And so hopefully everyone does. Hopefully you do at some point. You have the idea now that for a level 1 evacuation notice in your area, wherever you live, you kind of need to have an idea of what you're going to do. And just give yourself 3 things. For a level 2, know what you're going to do. And you know what? If these 2 end up being the same, that's an A+. That's just fine. That's fine. All right. Yeah.
So have you given those kinds of plans to other businesses
Yes.
or hospitals?
I've talked to the hospital more than a few times, and Asante. Yes, they have some of this. It's whether or not they'll have the capacity to make sure that they can do it. No plan is very good unless you train on it too. So somebody making policy can write a good policy, but really you've got to be able to practice it. And what I do know is that when we've had events, even without the plan, I know that the people that are working up at ACH are dialed in. Like they know what areas to close off. They know where to move patients. They could get better, just like all of us. But yeah, so I'm sharing that with everybody. And this is what I would recommend everybody do. All right, information management. Where should you get your information? First, I want you to sign up for emergency alerts, and I just say Everbridge because they're the overarching program, especially for the state of Oregon, that is the mass messaging tool that we use. It's Everbridge. No matter what the name is, you've probably heard Citizen Alert. That was like last year. Now it's Jackson Alerts. It was Citizen Alert when we were married to Josephine County, and we needed to divorce them. And so we became Jackson Alerts. And what you will find is that most counties have their own title. So I was talking with the city of Bend today because we compare notes on emergency management things. Imagine that, Bend wanting help from the little city of Ashland. And they are Deschutes Alerts because they are Deschutes County. So everybody there has that. If you move to Redmond or Bend, you should sign up for Deschutes Alerts. So just look for that as your own resource there. So sign up for that. That will be your most reliable, up-to-date, and accurate information as long as there are emergency managers making sure that that stuff gets sent. Not everywhere has emergency managers.
How do you sign up?
Great. I want you to go to your browser on your computer tonight and type in Jackson Alerts, Oregon, and then it'll take you down a pathway. I didn't design the site, so sorry, I didn't mean to hit the microphone there. Sorry, Rick. So I think it takes too many clicks to get to where I would like to go to sign up, but be patient, have some chamomile tea as you go with it, find the sign up here, and then put in the information that it wants, and then you can get it. Now I have other ways to do that. If you're local here and you don't have time to come up with another username and another password and another multi-factor authentication, which is like, that's the new thing. There's opt-in alerts, which are simpler. Opt-ins for Ashland, if you have a device that accepts texts, which I imagine most of us do, and if you don't have one, okay, get a friend who does have one and have them do this. If you create a message, you're going to send it to this person. It's not a person, it's just a number. It goes to Everbridge, 888-777, and you can text our zip code 97520. Now there's some history as to why this is probably one of our most effective messages in Ashland. It's because in 2013 and 14, when everybody was trying to get a mass messaging system, we had a new fire chief. He was from Alameda, California, which is interesting. We had the Almeda Fire. And he saw that down in California they had Nixle, but then the county wanted to go with Everbridge, and Everbridge had too many questions, too many addresses, too many names, and he's like, you know what, Nixle's really simple, let's go with Nixle. And so we signed up with Nixle, we had to pay a little money to get it, and that was how fast you signed up for Nixle. Is you typed 888-777, you hit 97520, you sent it, and then boom, you were getting messages. And that made a big difference because what we found was, a few years later, when the rest of the county's finally under Everbridge, and I got to see some of these statistics. In 2019, there were 17,000 people signed up with 97520. Now the county has about 110,000, I think, Talent, Phoenix, Medford, Eagle Point, including us, so maybe take away 20. And for everybody that had signed up for Everbridge, for all the 100,000 or so, and if I'm wrong, please just forgive me, it's a higher number than what we have in town, correct? So we had 17,000. The whole county had 30,000. Less than a third of the people were signed up. And it's because it was hard. So right around 2022-23, Nixle is a little company. They got bought by Everbridge. And so if any of you ever had an AOL account, an email account, nobody works at AOL anymore, even though your email address is ellen@aol.com. Nixle's the same way. Nobody works at Nixle anymore. It's just managed by Everbridge. And the text feature on it is so useful. You will still see some messages come through that say Everbridge/Nixle because it's a utility. It's how it's used. And Everbridge has bigger messages. There is way more, there's way more functionality with Everbridge. Like for me as an emergency manager, instead of just sending to a group of people that sign up for a text, I can take a magic map of an area and just send it to the people inside that mapped area that have an Everbridge account, rather than blasting 17,000 people.
So it geolocates the phone?
It geolocates, I didn't want to say that unless everybody wants to put that in your own vernacular now. It geofences and geolocates. And it locates the phone, yes. And the account. So if you are in that area, so we had a police event locally here, and it was only hazardous about a block and a half out from the address where that event was going on. And so me as the emergency manager, the police department calls me and says, emergency manager, make us a little geofence for an area to tell people that are in that area, just in that area, just sit tight and we will contact you and help you if needed. Otherwise, we're going to resolve what was going on with what was happening. And so I don't have to blast 17,000 Ashland. Well, we actually have 19,000 now because it's a really useful thing. I just have to put the people that have Everbridge counts in there. Does that make sense? Okay.
I just have a question.
Yeah, one more.
Watch duty on my phone.
Mhm.
And I got a notice the other day that there was a fire in Central Point.
We will talk about that in just a moment.
Yeah. I was glad that it was working.
Yeah. So we have other ones. Watershed is Ashland's own, so we have a pretty robust fire mitigation team that goes up in our hillsides and clears out underbrush in the forest to protect our water supply, because our water supply, if it burns through there and then erosion goes down into the water, our water is gone. And so we've been pretty aggressive here in this Ashland area to try to protect that. So there's a lot of fire mitigation that happens up there. A couple years ago, we even had helicopter logging. Who knew that we would be happy about that in this town? But we got rid of a bunch of dead trees. We've managed the forest around there to protect our water. And it's in our what we call our watershed. So if we do prescribed burns, then we put out messages on this. So if there's a little haze coming into town, if it's ours, if it's in our watershed, then we talk about it. If it's blowing from other places, kind of depends on if the AQI is starting to get high enough, whether or not we'll send out a message, but we'll always send like smoke-related messages and prescribed burn messages on this. Shelter 97520, I'll hold questions now because I'm breaking Jenny's rule about taking questions. I like crowd work, I like talking to you, but, oh, she says it's okay. Yeah, what's your question?
So if we want the watershed ones, we have to type in not just the 9520, 9752, but we have to type in the other words.
Yeah, you're just gonna type a message to this, and you're gonna send this word.
Can you send them all at once? They have to be different.
No, you can't put like a comma or anything like that. You just do each one
Each
for
one.
each time. Yeah, and it's like just
only
a,
for texts.
yeah, it's only for text. And
Yeah.
you know, the kids these days, they're using like all their fingers and just to do it. Like it's okay if you have to hunt and peck. Take your time, backspace because you hit the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Predictive,
Fat fingers.
yeah, just take your time. Shelter 97520 is when we have more severe weather, if we need a warming shelter or a cooling center, or just a space for people to be safe when we're having bad weather. So that's under this one. And then finally, my very good new team at Jackson County Emergency Management thought, hey, it's actually a really good idea because we live in Jackson County, Ashland's in Jackson County. The mighty state of Ashland is in Jackson County. And if we have a fire with evacuation orders in another area of the county, you might want to know about it. And so they created Jackson Evacs. And if you send that, then when my friends at Jackson County Emergency Management send out an evacuation notice, say around Shady Cove or Butte Falls or Trail, you will get a notice saying, hey, there's a level 3 evacuation in this zone. And then you can go to Genesis Protect and look at it on the map and go, okay, we were going to go to Crater Lake today, but maybe we'll hold off today. So then you can be more aware. I have all of these on my phone, and I'm the guy that sends them. So, all right, so other information management. Somebody asked about watch duty, and oh, that's the next one. Okay, so NWS stands for National Weather Service. The Medford office of NWS, of National Weather Service, is one of only 9 in the country that has a higher level of all kinds of stuff that they can figure out and do. They've been slashed and cut and staffing reductions and all kinds of things in the last year. And I am friends with the very good team that's still left and told them they can't not be there when I call them to ask for a spot weather check, because we need them, because they are still going to continue to give us our fire weather alerts all through summer, and they're going to hold little meetings and stuff so that we can be aware of what's coming and how long it's going to last. So they're still here. They're not doing as much as they used to, but they are dedicated and all in on our fire weather stuff, because that's our most likely event. So pay attention to the weather. Be a weather nerd. Anybody here a weather nerd? 1, 2, 3. You want to be one. Thank you, Audrey. Thank you. Yes. So make friends with a weather nerd and say, hey, are we getting a big wind event in the next couple of days? And they will be like, well, yes, we are. Okay, that's a good day to make sure everything's cleaned up around your place. Pay attention. City of Ashland web pages is putting out trusted, verified information from emergency management, from our fire department, from our police department. And so if you're like, what's going on in Ashland? If you find it there, you can trust it. Jackson County web pages, okay, they're the county. And the team they have now, plus the Jackson County sheriffs, are actually doing a really good job. And they're doing a really good job because we get lots of practice at doing this really well. And so a lot of other areas look at us and go, how is it that you guys are doing that? And so I will trust what they put out. I don't always like the way that their pages are organized. I can't always find what I'm looking for, but there's ways to get into their pages. So here's the other things. Everbridge makes an app. As of a couple of years ago, it wasn't the most amazing app on the planet, but it does send any of the messages that go out on Everbridge. It will send it to your phone. It's one way to receive the messages. Watch duty. Okay, let's talk about watch duty. I have this line, taught to me by somebody way smarter than me. Trust but verify. So watch duty has a lot of good information. There's a lot of good people working behind the scenes to push out information that's coming from a trusted source already. And sometimes watch duty gets it wrong. Now, I don't know the intent of why this happened, but for me, my best example as to why I say trust but verify was because on September 4th, 2024, we had another fire out by exit 11, and we had a little bit of wind blowing towards town. So that makes my hackles go up. I'm ready to go to work. Ashland Fire gets there first, starts going to work. Ashland Police gets there first. Jackson County Sheriff's is coming behind. Jackson County Fire District 5, what's left of them, is coming to help fight the fire. And so we're talking about what we should do. The Jackson County emergency managers were helping with the complete water failure in Shady Cove. And so they said, okay, here's what we need. We're going to need level 3 in zone 542 because everybody needs to go because the wind was pushing just enough, the fire was big enough, threatening houses. Everybody needed to go there. Then the adjacent zone, let me go back here because it's fun to see this. The adjacent zone here, the wind's blowing this way, not very strong, not nearly Almeda straight, but it's blowing this way. This zone, it was prudent to say, let's put people on a level 2 here, just in case. So watch duty does a good job and puts that information out, and then 2 minutes later, one of the people that I'm working with in my little mini emergency operations center as I'm getting information from the field and feeding it out to my communications officer, somebody says, hey, both zones are red. Both zones are go now. And I'm like, what? And so we looked at it, and somebody on watch duty had posted both zones as being red. And that screwed people up in the other zone. That was false information, bad information. So does that happen every time? No. But it's happened enough, and it's happened around the country so I think watch duty is pretty cool. I like the wind thing because it shows the wind. I like that it shows AQI. I like that it shows the zones. I like all of that. And if I get information from watch duty, I want to find more. I want to find out more before I completely just go all in with it. Does that make sense? It was interesting to talk to some people around the state who also had the same question. I'm like, oh, you had one of those too? Okay. I will say that for 2025, watch duty did very well. For 2024, one off. So trust but verify. And then finally, what do I have? Social media, that's why I put it below watch duty. So some, yes, in emergency situations can be okay, but don't make social media the way that you get things because there's too many bad actors out there posting false information. Remember when social media was just like pictures of your kids or your picnic? Okay, it's become another thing. It's become a different beast. And so I rarely, if ever, visit that unless the city forces me because they want me to push something out and I don't like it. But if that's where people are going to go to get their information, again, I just tell you, trust but verify. Talk to your neighbors more than you look at that. Like, talk to your friends. Yes, do you have a question?
How does one verify watch duty?
Watch Duty is an app that you can get either from the Apple App Store, I have an Apple, or from the
Play Store.
or the
Yeah, Play Store.
Play Store.
But how do you
Isn't that the one
verify?
downtown by Shakespeare? Don't they have the Play Store where they sell posters now?
There's that one too.
Google Play or something.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and you can just download it to your phone.
I understand
Oh.
that, but how do you verify? You say verified. It's
So
not-
I would say that if you got a notice from a fire in Central Point, you said you got, and maybe that affects you, or maybe it doesn't, or it's just nice to have. If you're very curious and it might be in your area or affect, then I would look towards Jackson County Sheriff's Office, who helps Central Point with their evacuations. I would look to Jackson County Emergency Management, which helps Central Point with emergency evacuations if needed and updates. And I would check other sources first, or I'd call my friend in Central Point and say, hey, I got this thing. Just to verify it. I wouldn't just blindly trust it. Maybe there will be a time where Watch Duty really is the go-to, and I know that lots of places are going to it, so it's just inevitable that most people will use it. And I admit, I do look at it. I just don't look at it for critical information. Right? All right. Those are the things on that. And again, like you got to go with what suits you. Yes, ma'am.
So to verify, can you go to Everbridge? Will that help?
If you have Jackson Alerts on your phone and there's information that's saying that is basically mirroring that, it's how that's supposed to work. Is they're supposed to get it and then just repost what we do.
Right.
The shame is that
But to
Doesn't work.
verify.
yeah. So you should have an Everbridge app or an Everbridge account or a Nixle or something, and just double verify that. Look at the City of Ashland web pages for locals, and that's where you do it. And you know what? There's not an easy answer sometimes, right? You know, I found when I first took this job too that Jackson County was pretty tight-lipped. They didn't like telling their people what was going on, and that was the culture, that was the mood. It's changed. Everybody wants to know now. I think Ashland was a little ahead of the curve on that, which is why my emergency management style is to let you know what's going on so you can make a good decision. But I don't control what Jackson County puts out. Good team. The last of the three things, and I said there's a few things. Go kits and preparedness plans. So this slide deck, I think RVML can probably make it available. And I put the longer links on here. So the federal government rarely does anything great. Does anybody know what FEMA stands for?
Federal Emergency Management.
It actually stands for, and you've heard this joke before, few expect much action. And yet, there was a very good team that put out these Go Kit lists, and we use those. So if it's a good resource, I will highlight it. I will amplify it for them. There's one for older adults that has some good planning steps. And we have some older adults here. I'm an older adult now. So it sparked things in my brain that was like, oh, I hadn't thought about this that way. And then the basic kit is here. It also talks about pets. The older adult one's really good. And then the plan, which is what I'm kind of encouraging you to make and start thinking about. Take little chunks out of it as you go along. Like, don't try to do it all in one. I get overwhelmed with this stuff too. So just take little steps, and you'll get there. The state a couple years ago put out a B2 Weeks Ready. Can anybody remember what it was before? Anybody remember what the program was before 2 weeks ready?
3 days.
Yeah, it was like 72 hours. Like we gave out 72-hour kits. Okay. So this actually harkens back to when Cascadia was super exciting, because we knew that if the shelf moves and then Oregon falls into the ocean and Washington falls in the ocean and there's new beachfront property outside of Grants Pass, we knew that you would need to be ready for at least 2 weeks. I'm not sure that's achievable for me, and some people it might be. But so I'm still highlighting their program because whoever the smarty pants were that kind of revised the program and was like, hey, you know, you actually should be ready for a couple weeks if you can. Some of their problem solving things that they do in the toolkit that you can get online, it makes you think. I like doing scenarios. I'm a scenario-based kind of person. Like that's how I did a lot of training. That's how I do training for anybody in my community. It says things like, okay, it's day 2 after the disaster, and the children are thirsty. What are you going to do? Or how would you prepare? Yeah, get more, or you could store more. It's day 3, and grandma is going to run out of her medications in a couple days. Oh, gosh, okay, wow, I hadn't thought about that. Okay, so what would I do then to try to connect in with one of my pharmacies ahead of time and say, hey, I'm getting into wildfire season, or my pill supply is getting low. Maybe I'm going to go do. So those scenarios for me are super helpful, which is why I highlight that, because again, it'll spark your brain to solve your problems, which is what we're trying to do tonight. Other things that we have in the city of Ashland, the fire adapted communities. My friend Brian Hendricks is in charge of this program under the Ashland Fire Department, and it talks about how to make your home a little more safe. I have a couple of friends here wearing blue vests that know a bit about this as well too, because through the fire department, they train up to be able to go out and talk to neighborhoods about these very things. Brian is a super dialed in, very diplomatic guy. I've had people like screaming at him because he's talking about you probably shouldn't put lavender right next to your house because it's oily and it'll light your house on fire. And they love their lavender. And he's able to talk them down and get them to move the lavender just away from the house. Yeah, just far enough away. Not exactly, but yes, thank you. All right. Prepare your home, create more fire-resistant spaces, and then really take a look at the City of Ashland, the fire department web pages, and look under fire adaptive communities. It's information that's readily available in lots of different places. I like Ashland's. So other things in your plan, and this is where I talk about the long game. If you already understand that fire is not just an Oregon problem, it's not just a California problem or a Washington problem, it's everywhere now. Even if you think you're going to move to Antarctica while there's still ice left, you're going to encounter fires at some point there. And so here's the way to play the long game and live in the place that you're going to be in with the risk of fire, is connect with friends, family, and neighbors. Again, COVID is over. And yeah, there's probably that one neighbor who you'll never talk to, but when there's the threat of a wind-driven ember storm and wildfire coming through and burning, all of a sudden, the kind of lattes you drink that are different, or the thing that they put on the fence that you hated, like all of a sudden all that just falls away. Or burns, maybe, yeah, maybe. All of that falls away because now we're trying to help each other. And so I've said this in more than a few presentations, but during the Almeda Fire, of course, the fire department, we were all tapped out. We did save lives during the Almeda Fire. We couldn't save homes or property. There was no stopping the fire's advance. There was no stopping it going from house to house. It just was eating everything in its path. Even with all the water in the world, even with the best training in the world, and I think my crew was kind of the best of the best, we did manage to save Quiet Village, which I think that was a luck, but we did. And we probably shouldn't have been able to, but then we lost talent and we lost Phoenix, and it was too much. And so my point here is, gosh, I'm getting off track because I think about that event, and then I just, and then I. So we know it was human caused, but they haven't been able to pin it on. They had three good leads that they investigated to the fullest, and they couldn't prove it beyond the shadow of a doubt, reasonable doubt. Yeah. So connect with your friends and family because, thank you. Now I'm back on track. So firefighters saved a few. And then I like saying this because I play with a lot of cops too. And I always get to make fun of them because I'm a firefighter. And cops actually saved more lives than us, which is hard to say sometimes. But they did because they were out in front trying to bang on doors and pull people out of windows that were stuck in their trailer home or something. And the other half of the trailer home was on fire. I've seen it. But who saved more than all of them together? And it was people helping people. It was somebody like seeing somebody that needed help, even the neighbor that they don't like, and they said, hop in, I'll take you. Or somebody that needed help because their mobility is challenged, and somebody saw them and said, just hop in, we'll get you out of the way. And that's what saved more people. Yes, ma'am.
House burnt down. I was very close to the fire too. And one thing that still brings me to tears is I saw a man in his wheelchair on 99 heading to Phoenix.
Yes.
And what happened is a police officer and a trucker with a flatbed got him on there.
Yeah.
And put him in the cab.
There was a lot of tales of heroism that weren't just first responders that day. It is the reason why, as tragic as losing 3 lives was during that fire, it's great that we didn't lose more. And really it's just people just finally stepping up and helping each other. So it's time to start planning with your neighbors. If you think you have gaps, if you're worried, guess what? So are your neighbors. And they might have something that you don't, and you might have something that they don't. So work together. It's going to help us, especially through this next fire season that's coming. All right, take steps to identify and solve your problems. Write them down a little bit. Just even write down the problems and keep it to 3 or 4. Don't go further than that. Go have a chamomile tea and relax for a minute. You don't have to solve everything all at once. You just have to take bites out of it, okay? For me, I was the battalion chief that trained my people all the time, because if we weren't running 911 calls, we were training. And so what I want all of you to do is it's great to come to a talk and get some lip service and go, yeah, go kids. I want you to build it. I actually want you to build it and then show it to your neighbor or something like that. And they go, oh, you put a book in there. Like, I wouldn't have even thought of that. How come you have dead batteries in there? And you're like, oh, crud, you're right. Those are dead. Okay, I'm going to go get new ones. So do that. And then I want you to practice your evacuation. So if you were paying attention this last fall on October 11th, gosh, it's so funny. I think it was October 11th, we did an evacuation drill here in Ashland, community-wide. And anybody that got the alert, we sent them out to the airport, and it was just, please practice your route. Please practice what it takes to receive an alert. We did a fake alert. We said it all over there. We actually translated it into Spanish and Ukrainian. We have 23 Ukrainian families that have relocated to Ashland. They know about evacuations. And so we translated it into Ukrainian too, the same message. We gave people lists of like, hey, here's what you can do. And so people got a chance to practice. And we had a little over 300 folks do it. To date, it's one of the largest and most successful ones in the country, which is weird. But way to go, Ashland. So I want you to train for it. You don't have to wait for one of these big events. You can actually practice yourself. You can talk to your friends and say, hey, do you guys want to get together and maybe do this one day, like at 9 a.m.? Let's see how long it takes us to gather up our things, throw them in our vehicle, and go and see how long it takes us to get to where. Oh, here's a good question. Where are you going to go?
Depends on which way the wind's blowing.
Thank you. It depends on which ways the wind's blowing, because that determines where the fire is coming from. So you probably need, like, which way does the wind blow in the valley?
Both. What time?
Both ways. Which there's 4. There's north, east, south, and west. But we typically kind of go, this way. We blow down from, I like to say it this way, from Ashland to Medford in the morning. The cool mountain air is blowing down through us and down into Medford. And in the afternoon, Medford gets all hot and bothered, and then it turns around and it blows back towards us in the afternoon. That's the normal wind pattern. It can be different. It can be different. That's okay. On the day of the Almeda, the hackles should have been up on your neck because it was coming from the mountain, but it was hot and so fast. That is an east wind. There are east wind events all through California too. Scary stuff. When we have those days, pay attention. For me, my go kit's in my vehicle. I'm going to lock myself to my desk and a good generator building so that I can send out emergency messages, and I have a radio that I can carry so I can hear incident command. Like, I'm going to stay and fight it out. You guys can help each other and get out of the way. So which way do we go, right? Wind blows this way, wind blows that way. You should have a destination this way, and you should have a destination that way. Where's the fire? Gosh, I wish we could predict that every time. Hi, Jordan. Fire remains one of our most elusive foes. Like, again, we can predict some of the weather, but we don't know where it's going to start. We don't know when. We don't know how all the time, although we're trying to manage those things. So if you are in the path of it and you receive a level 3 go now or a level 2, that's the time that you think, okay, how do I know where it's coming from? Well, I don't have a ton of information on the message. This one was sent out, 7 minutes after the fire was reported. Okay. I can go outside and I can feel the wind on my body. So if the wind is pushing this way towards Medford, then the fire is somewhere this way. And coming towards me potentially. So I'm going to go that way. If you study wildland firefighting and read Norman McLean's Young Men in Fire, I'm trying to think of the name of the mountain that they died on. They all ran with the fire uphill, but had they gone side hill, and so I want you to think about side hill, I want you to think about going perpendicular as well too, because, say it again?
Like a riptide.
Kind of, yeah, yes, like swimming out of a riptide. So I want you to just think about routes and destinations. So I have some friends that think that if the fire is coming, say from Medford towards us, they're going to go over the border and down to All Star Liquors because there's a big, huge parking lot.
And all the bougie
Yeah, obviously, low-hanging fruit, yes. And then people going north, I do know some people that their story was like when they evacuated from the Almeda, they said, well, I'll just go to Talent. And then they go, okay, well, I'll just go to Phoenix. And then they're like, oh, God, it just keeps coming. And then they went to Medford and they almost, or they went to Grants Pass. So some people, when they say they're going north, I know some people are like, we're just going to go to Grants Pass. Because we are hosts to big fires sometimes, not all the time. It's when we have those big east wind events, I think, that it's big, and so you need to pay attention. You need to talk to each other. Hey, did you notice the wind's really blowing hard today? Oh, gosh, I was so into my book, I wasn't even paying attention. Yes, sir?
So would it make sense to kick your sprinkler on or not, because you're going to lower water pressure for everybody else?
Yeah, so there's no hard, fast yes or no on that. There's even like folks that are like, well, what if I put sprinklers on my roof? Like, is that going to help? There's no hard, fast, it's going to save it or it's not going to save it. There's some evidence to suggest that if it's wet, then yes, it has a less chance of catching on fire. There's evidence to suggest that if it's well irrigated, right, in advance of the fire, that it has much less of a chance of catching fire. Is that for every incident? No. No. Because, my friend Brian Hendricks talks about wildland fire. I hope I'm not going over time. Is that an alarm? Okay. There's this thing called 1 hour fuels. Does anybody know what the 1 hour fuels means? So when the wind is blowing and you're a reed of grass and you're wet and green and wonderful, if the wind is blowing, then a 1 hour fuel means it will take 1 hour for you to be dry and then ignitable for a fire. So even if you turn your sprinklers on, your lawn or your field is wet, it's going to take 1 hour. Maybe it'll save it. Maybe the fire front might pass through. There's no absolutes.
The house in Talent, right on the other side of the creek on 99, there was that little park there. It was all green,
Yeah.
and that survived, and everything else around it was toasted.
Yeah. Jordan, you got something? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Kelly. This is fantastic. Scott's other point, though, about, what do you say?
Many things, very, very important.
Yeah, he says lots of things.
Turning on your sprinklers on municipal water, lowering water pressure for firefighters. What's your advice on that?
Which can. So the thing that's devastating to the fire flow and firefighters is that if everybody turns their sprinklers on, or if your whole neighborhood burns to the ground, there's nobody going out there to shut off each water valve. And so the pipes that melt then are all draining water supply. We're running scenarios right now through Oregon State University, and because Ashland's a good test case, to try to determine how many homes flowing freely before Ashland's pressure and water supply will affect firefighting operations. What I can tell you is during these events, firefighting operations are already, like, they're not always going to work. We don't want to run out of water because we don't want to not have a chance. But we're running those scenarios now, and Ashland will probably have the first set of data in the valley on like what that looks like. And Ashland's water system, one more, is gravity fed from a giant reservoir up here. So for us to lose pressure completely, that's got to be a really big event for us. For Talent, it's very different. They have a couple of reservoirs that they're pulling from. And so for them, when multiple mobile home parks were burning, it was a really interesting situation to not have water coming out of the fire hydrant, and the hose that should be like ready to go was Scott.
So, do you recommend before you evacuate to shut the gas off and the water?
One of the things that's pretty common for preparation steps is to shut off your natural gas. I think that was started in California for some areas where, like, well, it did contribute to fires with the natural gas flowing and we weren't able to shut it off. That, again, though, is not, it's kind of like if you need to go, don't stop to turn off your natural gas. Potentially, too, if it's a level 1 or a level 2 and you're just like, I'm going to go, you can still shut it off. You could, if you have time, but is it going to make a big difference as to whether or not your house is going to catch on fire or your neighbor's house is going to catch on fire? No, it's not. So for me, when I look at those lists, I kind of think, I look at that bullet point and I kind of like, maybe not. It's more important maybe if you have your own structure fire or your neighbor's structure fire and maybe you're adjacent to it. And because the fire department still responds to house calls, structure fires. Yes, Susan?
A couple things. So one, because I live off of Ashland Mine Road,
Okay. Oh, yeah.
right? And so we we have some issues in terms of landing onto 99
Yes.
North Main when everyone else is already on that road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you go to YouTube, there's a camera on the corner. It's titled N for North and then Main Traffic Camera. So it'll show you a video live
Yeah.
of what's happening on 99 North Main at that juncture. It was put there because folks higher up on National Mine Road wanted to know maybe they can't get out.
Yeah.
And so then that comes to that place of shelter in place.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I'm wondering is if there's ever to be more information about shelter in place, because part of my concern is I live right below Ashland Mine Road, but there's been so many more buildings and homes.
Sure.
And Grand Terrace or Grandview Terrace is another 210 units
Yeah.
that's supposed to be built above Anderson Auto.
That's a lot of people.
So I don't really know how I'd get out.
Sure, sure. So, and shelter in place is something that it's dicey. There is no place in town if we had a fast-moving, wind-driven wildfire in an urban conflagration. It's lighting houses. It's going to light more houses. I would not encourage anyone to think that they're going to stay and defend or shelter in place. I want you to get out of the way. Lesson was learned in Australia in the early 2000s. They've been burning way more than we have, and they've lost lots of lives because they were like, well, stay and defend and shelter in place. And then it was Black Sunday or something like that. It was like 2006, 7, look it up. A lot of people lost their lives, and so they have since gotten rid of that. Now, is it never shelter in place? No, because if the fire is like in the Almeda and it's up in the top northwest corner of Ashland, does anybody else in Ashland need to evacuate from that that's outside of those zones, outside of Zone 10? No. No, they don't. And so, yes, you could shelter in place, but you won't get that order from me, because if you want to go, go. But just know if you're not affected or you're not in the path of the fire, that's a time that you can turn on your sprinklers, talk to your neighbors, maybe open your door to somebody who now is like saying like, hey, I had to evacuate. Okay, come on in.
So you're saying that with the zones and with who's ever in charge telling us about those zones, it's not only about can you get out soon enough, it's about where they think the fire is going to spread to.
Yes, yeah, and we're trying to get ahead of that. I'll tell a quick story here. And how much time do I have? Okay, so this one's where do we think the fire is going to go? Okay, well, we know the direction the fire is going to go because the wind will be pushing it. So like, you know that, and I'll know that. We don't know how fast it's going to get there, though. And I listen to other people who do research and talk about fires, and they say, well, you know, the fire can jump 900 meters, you know, and then I just sit there and I go, oh, really? Oh, really? And experience is a hard teacher. So there's a moment where I had pushed forward to what I thought was the front of the fire. I thought I was ahead of it during the Almeda Fire. This is Battalion Chief Kelly Burns. And I was down, do you all know the town a little bit? Do you know where the Evergreen Bank is down there at the bottom of Valley View in 99? Used to be a big gravel lot. Really good place for a staging area and a command post. I had trained all my life for big events in a little fire department, but I got to go I played with New York, I played with Chicago, I got to go to Emmitsburg, Maryland, and train with all kinds of Florida, like just to learn, because I wanted to be really good. And so I'm like, this is a good spot. And I knew that the fire, most of what I could see was behind me. It wasn't across Valley View Road, to my knowledge. And so I parked my vehicle. Brian Hendricks, of all people, who is not an operations person. I'm like, here, you're going to be my extra ears, you're my extra eyes. I'm going to tell you how to set up a tactical board, because we're going to set up here. And Brian's like, okay. Like, he'd never done anything like this before. I go to the back of my little Suburban, and I pull out my tactical board, and the Medford Battalion Chief, my counterpart in Medford, is pulling up in his rig. I have 2 Medford engines, and I just hear on the radio one of my Ashland engines, who's back in Quiet Village, saying, hey, there's nothing else here. We want to push forward. We're ready for an assignment. I look at JJ as he starts walking. It's JJ. He starts walking up to me, and he's like, hey, Kelly. And I go, hey, JJ. And behind me on the radio, and I'm trying to be calm. I'm trying to keep my game face. Jason Johns, JJ would tell me later, he was like, you were so calm. I'm like, I was not calm. Behind me on the radio, the dispatcher says, Battalion 1, be advised, we have reports of structures on fire at 333 Mountain View. 333 Mountain View is in Talent, 3 miles that way from where we were standing. And I thought we were about to draw a line on Valley View Road. And I remember looking towards Talent and thinking, how, like there's no evidence that the fire had done that yet, but it had jumped 3 miles. And so without missing a beat, because I couldn't drop my jaw and then pick it up, and I couldn't look like I was losing all hope, I looked at JJ and I said, JJ, do you know where the old Walmart used to be in Talent? Anybody remember the Walmart? Yeah. Okay. Well, it's not a Walmart anymore. And I said that, and I said, well, it's a Bramo Motorsports or something, because they did electric motorcycles, but now it's a Cummins diesel and Bramo. And I said, well, it's Bramo Motorsports. You're going to be Bramo Command. I want you to take both of your Medford engines and the Ashland engine, and you're going to go to that mobile home park behind it. And he's like, yeah, I know where that is. I'm like, save as many people and as many homes as you can. And he was like, oh, okay. And he turned around and ran. And he's like, what channel am I going to be on? Because I have to assign him a channel that he and I can talk. And I'd already assigned 5 of our tactical channels, and we only had 1 more. And so I assigned that last one, and off he went. I moved my command post up to the hotel at some point, and that was by a suggestion from my fire chief, who was my boss, who was out in the field, and I was telling him what to do. The one that's right at the exit there by the gas stations? That was our command post at some point. Yeah, on Valley View, yeah. It had already burned past there. And anyway, but that was the moment too where I was like, we're not gonna get in front of this thing. I have a video from one of my guys who was a firefighter, not a driver, not a captain. He was a firefighter in an engine, watching as they were driving down 99 and seeing the fire outrunning them. And he just caught that little short video on his phone. So okay, what chance do we have? We have a good chance if you prepare, if you connect with each other, if you sign up for alerts and things, because then on windy days like this, you're ready. And we can decrease our nervousness around it. So I want you to train for it. Finally, review and adapt as needed. That little story, that little anecdote about JJ and I having our moment and stuff too, I couldn't feel my feelings about the desperation that we were about to be in. We just had to adapt as quickly as possible and respond to what we could. That's what we did the whole Almeda fire. We did have a few significant wins during that time. There was a fight along Talent Avenue that had my fire chief, who I told him to go out because I was managing the whole incident, and he went, okay. He made a very good decision as to how to fight that with very limited water because the water system failed. Things Almeda taught us, and I'm going to hold questions to the end because I want to get through these without me derailing. Resources are limited. There's never going to be enough firefighters. There's never going to be enough fire engines. There's never going to be enough water to stop the big events. They're not all big events, though. They're not. There's only a few. And there's a few days of the year where the hackles should be up on your neck, and then you should connect in with each other and go, okay, hey, today's the day to be ready. All right, and we can do that, and we can get through that. I have no slide for this. This is one of my favorite ones. Captain Foss, he's still working today. He and I were partners for a long time, and he was on one of our engines. This is actually his crew in Talent, and this is his engineer trying to open the fire hydrant, and you'll see that's the saddest looking fire hose on the planet, even though there's a little bit of water which is coming out of the tank from here, which is rapidly depleting, but that is saying that there's no more water. But what this is showing too is that there was, which you can't really tell, there's a whole row of like 4 condos, and then there's like a carport, and then offset down the driveway is another carport and another set of 4 condos. It was a development that was put in there. Foss gets there and he sees that this whole set's on fire and this set is not. And when you learn firefighting tactics, you know that it only takes a little bit of water keeping a building wet, even when the flames are like trying to hit it. If you can just keep that water on the building that's not on fire, you will save that building. So he tells his little crew, his engineer and his one other firefighter, just put out 2 hose lines. Engineer, you watch the water, get us some water in the tank. That's not gonna work. And then he and the other firefighter will just they'll watch the fire because it's hot, and they'll save these buildings. And he said they did that, it was starting to work. And then, and I've told this story before, and then he hears boom. Boom, again, and it's on the other side of the unburned building. And he's like, okay, so Tim was his firefighter. He's like, Tim, you got this? And Tim's like, yeah, what was that? He's like, I'm gonna go find out. So the people that lived in this set of 4 they had left their doors unlocked because they hoped the firefighters would come and might help save them. Their homes, they were gone. The people weren't there. And so he goes through, he opens it up, and you can see all the way to the back. All the condos are the same. There's a sliding glass door that goes to a small back patio, and he can see that there's flames licking up on the back of the house from the ground. And so he runs through, he opens the sliding glass door, and he looks, and there's a gas meter that has exploded. There's no fire around it. He looks over the fence at the next one, and this one's gone, and then the third one down there, boom, explodes as he's looking at that. He comes in, and never seen that before. What had happened is when they constructed this, the lines that were underground, which went down the center of the main drive and then were connected between all the meters, at some point there was enough air between the gravel that was around it that it just fed and burned like a fuse until it came up to the back side of these unburned things, and that was one of the reasons why they lost those buildings. And so he comes into the command post probably an hour 28 or 29, and we're all beat down, and Justin is such a good dude. He's from the Midwest, and he's super strong and kind, and he's just kind of shaking his head, and he says, I didn't have a slide for this. That phrase is from an old military training that we took in leadership school about, remember when we had slide projectors? Those of you with slide projectors? So in military training, they call it RPDM, Rapid Prime Decision Making. And so they said, okay, when you go out to do your thing or you have an event, you get experience, and that experience becomes a slide. And so when you go to your next experience, you take a slide from your slide deck and you overlay it and you go, okay, that one doesn't work. Oh, yeah, that one's a perfect match for this. I'm going to do the same thing. And so you have slides of experience. And so Justin was like, hey, Kel, I didn't have a slide for this one. I've never seen this before. And we talked about that in the command post. And then we went right back to work. So water system failures, we never saw that before either. The fight along Talent Avenue that would save the other half of Talent, we ended up doing a line of engines, only 3, and the front engine had 2 hose lines out and would roll, pump and roll very slowly. The 2 other engines would follow. A firefighter from one of the back engines would come and hold on to one of the hose lines, and they would hit houses that were on fire and ground, and then the person on the other side, on the unburned, would hit hot spots and make sure they were cool, and they would very slowly advance like this. When that engine ran out of water, because there's no water in Talent anymore, that engine would roll up their hose lines. The second engine then would come up. They would have the hose lines ready to go and start spraying. And then that engine would drive 3 miles back to the only working hydrant, which was right near Jackson Well Springs, right near where my command post was, because it's an Ashland hydrant and it wasn't going to lose water. And so that worked. We still lost a lot of buildings, but the other half of Talent survived. I think it was also on luck, but it was the right tactic at the right time. One more. So we never seen that. Hey, welcome to the show, LA Fire, because in the Palisades and Eaton Fire, your water systems failed just like ours did. And it was interesting to talk to the firefighters. LA Fire's the best of the best. They are tough as nails, and they're just good. And they were like, I've never seen this before. There was no water coming out of the hydrant. And I'm like, yeah, I know. What are we going to do next time? And then finally, our roads are not designed for evacuations. That's why I want you to practice. I want you to think about alternate routes. I want you to think about going early. And then when the city is designing new, roadways and stuff too, I want you to raise your voice and say, hey, don't put big planters in the middle of the road. I want as much drivable space as possible, just in case we need it. And the city's learning that, and it's thanks to you all and me. Yeah, as all cities are, So it is an everywhere problem. Okay, who's minding the store? You guys are. I hope you've learned some from tonight. When all the responders are responding, who's left? You. Lessons 911 isn't going to be enough. It's never going to be enough. What can you do? Do the pre-work, play the long game. Hey, what else is coming? We don't just have fires. We're in a drought. We are heading into a drought. Jackson County has already declared a drought, and they're trying to do that to sustain our farms and our industry. Ashland is heading toward a drought. Our water supply is actually better, but we are under strain right now because our snowpack, we don't have any. And so our reservoir is not going to refill like we want it to, and like it's always done. And so I would say start looking around June, July. We're going to start asking you to maybe don't water your lawn so much, or only water a little bit at night. Or if it gets really bad, we're going to say just water your trees. Don't worry about your grass. Don't worry about your flowers or your bulbs. Just save the trees at this point. When you go to a restaurant, there may be a point where you say, hey, where's my glass of water? And they'll be like, we're under drought. Oh, you don't get water then. So that might be coming. So the city of Ashland put out a web resource and a press release called Fire, Water, Get Ready, because we're heading into a fire season with a drought, which those are typically hard summers. And some of our biggest fires occur during that. That's why you're here getting ready right now, so that you can know going in, and that will make it easier. Also, see emergency preparedness pages. All the stuff that we have on my pages are great. Coming soon, hey, July 15th, we did an event last year at the old Ashland Armory. About 400 Ashlanders showed up. We're going to do another similar one. Some of the things I talk about here, but also more. And that'll be at SOU on July 15th, and Ashland.news, a group called Ashland Together, are going to be putting out marketing for that. Look for that. It's not out yet. I'm letting you know ahead of time. And then finally, oh, great. See, they're already ahead. Ashland CERT, we've got our couple of team members here. We've got a couple of programs. One is called Better Prepared Neighborhoods. And Better Prepared Neighborhoods is a training for a neighborhood group that is interested in how do I address the 0 to 5 foot radius around my house and my neighbor's house? How do I keep it safer so that my fire doesn't become my neighbor's fire? And so a couple of our team that does that, Reggie Wyndham is here. She teaches that portion called Wildfire Risk Assessment Program, the WRAP program that Ashland has. And so she can go with you, with your neighborhoods, and do that. And then my friend Mike here likes to talk about some of the evacuation resources too, and talks about the zones and the messaging and the alerts and talking about your plans. And then they wrap the program, the WRAP program, by walking around the neighborhood and looking at the features that they just talked about and things that you could do, might do. Not just to shame your neighbors into removing the bark chip pile that they have there that they're going to distribute, but maybe a little to do that. Okay, so speak to them, and I know Reggie brought some resources if you're curious about that. We need more people that are going to be willing to instruct that. I want you to become a CERT member if you're going to do it, though, and these guys can talk about that, and they're great. I always assign homework, and the top 3 are my favorites, so I keep assigning that. So I want you to go ahead and do 1 of the following, or do 2, please. Master Kung Fu, because that would be cool if you could do that. I watched movies when I was growing up, so if you can do that, that's great. Don't worry about the rest. Find the cure for cancer, because so many of my friends. And if you found that, I would thank you. I'd buy you coffees for a lifetime if you did that. And if you do that by next Tuesday, great. Find your nemesis. This is an Ashland one. Earn their trust and vanquish them, preferably with magic.
We'll dice for that, right?
Jordan would like that. All right. Maybe number 4, make your own evacuation plan and practice it. How about that? If you did that by next Tuesday, do you think you could do that? That would be an acceptable A grade from me. Put together a go kit for yourself and a loved one can be a pet. Finally, make a communication plan for if communications fail, because what we've seen in these big events is that sometimes these great systems that we have, they fail. Okay, don't just throw your hands up. It's not game over. You've got to figure out what to do. So, best example, and let me see, what else do I got here? Okay, best example is one of my friends who works for the city. He's this big dude, and he works at the water treatment plant way up in the canyon. And so if you remember this last year, one of the fires that we had was kind of towards the south of us. And the zone that they are in, even though it's Jackson County, was under at least a level 1 evacuation. The fire wasn't going to make it to the water treatment plant, but he's up there, and he's a friend of mine. And so not only am I getting ready, but I'm calling him because I know he's up there. And I said, hey, Alistair. And he's like, hey, Cal. And I said, just so you're aware, he's like, no, I know I got it. And I'm like, how's your family? He's like, they're good. Don't worry about them. Like, we already know what we're going to do. I know that if my family has to evacuate, I know where they're going to go to the north, and I know where they're going to go to the south, and we're all just going to meet there, even if communications fail. And I remember looking at Alistair and going, wow, okay, good. Because that's the way we all should be at some point. Your family, your trusted ones should know, even when communications fail, where they might find you. If you drop your phone in haste. We definitely had people that in the evacuations that we had locally, I've heard some great stories of like this guy who is, he's medically dependent on a dialysis machine, and he and his wife had a great plan. And in the actual evacuation, he grabbed the dialysis machine, put it in the car. She grabbed like a book and a deck of cards, and they left their wallets and their phones, and it was because they were excited. That happens. Forgive yourself if that happens, but practice your plan, it'll happen less. All right, Theodore Roosevelt is credited with saying something like this, and this, even as a responder who I feel like I've trained for things and stuff too, but sometimes it just wasn't enough, and so I just had to do the best I could with what I had where I was at, and that holds true for any of us in this room, but we're better if we're doing it together, because then we can help each other out. Thanks for listening, and there's my contact information and stuff too, and that's all I have for you. And we'll do questions.
Down in the Alameda Fire along the Ashland ponds, the city had pretty much mowed everything to dirt up against those houses that parallel, and they were fine. You know, I had a client down there who was running a business. I went down there to see if I could do anything. The fire was already down into Talent by the time I got to it, but there was nothing because the city had done such a nice job of mowing everything. There was nothing burnable within about 20 to 30 feet of their house.
You should have seen it when it was burning, though. It was a wall, 200-foot tall wall of flame that was burning right next to those houses. Wow. There was one house, well, there were 3 houses really that caught on fire. And by luck, as I was getting ready to watch the first 2 houses go, and I'm thinking I've got nobody left. This is a great story. And again, there's just some luck that happens with this. Like I assigned everybody I could in the field. I called for the world. We had a helicopter. I was telling them to drop water on the head because we need to slow it down. They tried. And then I walked up into the Glendower area of Quiet Village, and I see this 2 homes. They had this really cool manzanita plant that was grown between them for a little privacy screen. It was beautiful. Manzanita's like all webby looking, and it's on fire, and the wind's blowing so hard it's making a fire tornado between the 2 homes. And I'm going, I got nobody for this. And I look up the street, and one of my Fire District 5 engines, who had been dispatched on the 2nd and 3rd alarm, but they had gone early because they heard the first call in Ashland. Now, you work with District 5, they're a little cowboy now and then. You're not supposed to self-dispatch, but I was pretty grateful they self-dispatched that day. So I see them and I know who it is, and I said, Engine 3, right here, anchor right here, and put that out. And they did, and they saved those 2 houses. Now my chief, David Shepard, he comes down and I'm like, David, I need you to take this because I need to push to the front. And David was like, okay. And he goes to the far end of Coventry, I think it is, where there's a row of houses right up against where this raging wall of fire is going. ODF, the Department of Forestry guys, are down there with these little tiny hoses, whatever, putting it out. They're not going to put it out, but they're trying their best. And David sees that another fire whirl is hitting the side of one of the houses, and it's going to go. The very first engine that got assigned in the Almeda, there was nothing else to burn there. The fire had gone, and they had decided to just go ahead and drive forward and get further down into Quiet Village. And so Chief Shepard gets on the radio and says, I need somebody at such and such an address on Coventry. And my 2 guys that were on that engine were like, we got it, Chief, we're right here. And they pulled right up and they put the side of the house out. They put the blackberries that were doing the fire whirl out. Had any one of those engines not been there at that time, we would have lost Quiet Village. And I got to tell you, it was 24 hours later before I knew that we had saved Quiet Village, because the captain that was on that truck that saved the next house, the second set of houses, he comes up to me in the command post, and he goes to give me this big hug, and he's not a hugger, and if you worked with the guy, you wouldn't want him to hug you either, because he was a troublemaker. And they gave him to me because I could sort out the troublemakers, but he's like, Cal, we did it, and he gives me this big hug, and I'm like, oh, no, what are you doing? And he's like, we did it, we saved it, and I'm like, we didn't save anything. Like, we're losing everything, and we're losing talent fees. He's like, no, the Quiet Village neighborhood is still there. We saved it. I didn't know. And I was like, wow, okay, good. Get back to work. Yeah, so. Other questions? Yes, ma'am. You had your hand up.
I have a wooden fence around my garden that connects to the house in several places, and I'm trying to find some metal fencing that has holes small enough that embers that don't have any heat. No, the embers that have heat can't get through. Yeah. And I'm having trouble finding fencing companies that can provide
That would have a
some of
small
the-
enough mesh. So maybe. So the mesh piece, or the fine mesh that we want that doesn't let embers in, and Reggie can correct me if I'm wrong, we're more wanting those on like the soffit vents of your house, not just for fencing and stuff too. So any kind of fencing that's metal, you want to, if best practice is if your wooden fence connects to your house, is break it up with a section of metal somewhere. I would put it right next to the house, and Reggie could probably talk to you more about that. And it's not always feasible for everybody, but that is one way to make your house more safe. Is it going to save it every time? No, but we've already seen plenty of times where if the wooden fence does connect directly to the house, then that's just a pathway that the fire finds and then eventually lights the house on fire.
Do you know
So,
of any fencing company that is making fences that have small enough holes?
Reggie?
I'll give you information today.
Okay.
I'm contacting me and I'll direct you.
So where's your contact info?
I'll leave these 10 packets. That Mike and I put these together for the better prepared neighborhoods. And you can have my contact information, call me, email me, text me, and I will send you some information about that.
Thank you.
Reggie's a great resource. Yes, ma'am.
I'm curious, if we go back to the National Weather Service,
Yeah.
it knew that this wind was coming in this oddball direction.
Yeah.
You know, for quite a while.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of
Couple
in
days,
the,
yeah.
and how, you know, who's got the ear to that, saying, oh my God, I mean, we've got it coming from the southeast, Utah,
Yeah.
you know, or Colorado, it
Yeah.
was blowing in from.
So was it, you know, they weren't hiding it. It's just that many people just weren't really paying attention. Nobody had seen anything quite like that. We've seen movies and we've heard about fires in California, but I think most people just think, well, that's their problem. The big learning is, and it's what I'm telling people, is start paying attention. Now, I'm used to be a polyglot, which means I speak lots of languages. I knew French and German and American Sign Language. I spoke a little Mandarin, and I sometimes do English okay. But what I know is that working with our weather nerds, especially in National Weather Service, they speak a whole different language that's really strange. And their websites to me are frustrating. But I want you to learn them. And that's why you make friends with a weather nerd that can help you make sense of some of their abbreviations and things too. And they have a good resource that says days in advance, hey, red flag weather warning, red flag day, you know, just stuff like that. And again, the city of Ashland does have a pretty good page now that's kind of defining that for everybody, especially for our local area. And it's like you tell somebody about it and then learn it, and then you too can also be aware of it now.
There was this amazing story living on the Green Springs where the Green Springs Volunteer Department got the call to come down.
Yeah.
And so they rallied and they're heading down the hill, 66, and they come across a car, some kind of a car truck who has a propane tank strapped to the roof of this thing and is pulled over to the side. And they pull over and they find, you know, pretty checked out, but he said he heard voices that he was to set fire to his truck, which if that thing had occurred, it would have blown through Ashland, you know, I mean, really virtually southeast Ashland.
So, yeah,
where
so
we're sitting right now wouldn't be here because
this is another true story. And so I'm in the command post at the hotel, and Gene Davies, who is the fire chief of Green Springs, amazing guy. He's got stones. I heard him during the Gorge fires. Is that right? There was a big fire up there, and like I could hear him on the radio, and he was just steady. And I was like, wow, I want to be like him. And so I'm at the command post, like there's chaos and we're losing buildings, and firefighters from other agencies are like, oh, I got a splinter, I can't do it. I'm like, get out there. And I got 5 channels assigned, and the 6th channel, my Medford guy, I can't really hear him, so I'm trying to work that out. And the wind is just blowing like 20 miles an hour plus, and so I'm kind of standing out of the wind. And I'm talking to Brian to try to get him to sort out the tactical board. And I hear on the radio Gene Davies calling my name. You never call somebody's first name on the radio, but Gene could do that, and we could get away with it because we know each other because we work out at the Y together. And he says, hey, Kelly, this is Gene with Green Springs. And I'm looking at the radios thinking, okay, which one? And so the radios, they have a little indicator light when it's on. So I grab it and I'm like, go ahead, Chief Dave. Call him a chief. And he goes, hey, we're driving by Immigrant Lake, right by the pull-in there. There's a car that's on fire. Do you want us to stop and put it out? And so this was a moment where my jaw had to drop for a second. And I step out from around my Suburban and I look towards the east, towards the south, and I'm thinking, holy cow, if that car takes off, it is going to take out it's going to take the heart of Ashland. And so I go back to the thing and I'm trying to find the radio again, and I grab the mic, and for the first time, my voice raised a little bit. I said, yes, put it out, and let me know what you need, and let me know if you need any extra stuff. And he said, okay. And so he and his little crew put the fire out. The guy that thought it was a good day to burn his car up, he was crazy. And he wasn't trying to do anything other than he was having a bad day.
He said he heard voices.
He heard voices, and they were like, hey, today, and he was just having the worst day of his life. He saw the plume of smoke from the Almeda, and he's like, that's a good reset button. I can just burn my car home. And so he does, and the propane tank blew up and burned him. And then he's like, wow, that hurts. But had Green Springs not been driving by at that moment, we would be telling a different story. There's a great article with this very story in Ashland.news if you go back, and it tells Gene's side of it. It tells me what I heard and stuff too. And Gene he's so humble. He just says, Kelly tells me, he'll see me at the Y and he'll say, thanks for saving Ashland. And I tell him that every time I see him. And he's like, you can't know that, so Green Springs is credited.
One of those stories that get kind of buried in the history.
Yeah, and pretty interesting. We got pretty lucky on that. Any other questions about what we talked about tonight?
Can we talk about the fire that started within the last month on Hummingbird? Are you aware of that?
Hummingbird.
It's in Talent.
Yeah.
It's near Wagner Creek Road.
I don't know too much about that because I'm mostly Ashland. I do pay attention to some of the fires, but I'm not always privy to every fire.
Let me tell you what happened.
Oh, okay.
Smoke. I heard 2 or 3 fire trucks going, so I knew it had to be bad. So what happened was this guy was burning brush.
Yeah.
And he thought he had it out. His wife, they go out to dinner. He comes back to a burnt house.
Oh.
And it's lucky that all of Talent didn't burn down with that.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a super windy day, yes. So Ashland's pretty tight with its burning regulations. We are super tight with our burning regulations. We have a very short, very narrow window. The rest of the county, not so much. And there are property owners that are learning hard lessons every year that the landscape is different. Things are burning different. And so I'm sorry that they lost their house, but you've been on plenty of it. And Audrey, you had a thing?
Yeah, so somehow, I had no idea how, but on the Almeda fires, somehow I found some link that had me tied into the dispatch, the radio. So I was just listening to it all night.
Okay.
And I was wondering, is there anything for the public, where we can do something like that just to pay even deeper attention?
I'm going to guess, so I don't listen to scanner groups, and I know that there are some people that do that. There are ham radio folks too, if maybe knowing a good ham radio person, so you can pay. I do know families that shacked up with a ham radio person during the Almeda so that at least they could listen to the radio traffic. They were out of harm's way. And then those kind of radio networks are sometimes still up when other systems fail, so we might fall back onto them if other communications fail. I don't have a strong recommendation one way or another. I'm not someone who does ham, and yet I think it's coming back. So, yeah.
So I live along the railroad tracks at Wingspread, Clay Street, and I am trying to get the railroad again to cut that section.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she already, yeah.
Yeah, I need to write because there's the railroad.
Yeah.
And talk to them. Also, county is interspersed.
Yes.
And they have different regulations.
They have different regulations.
It's like a checkerboard. So I'm thinking we just need all to call the county and keep reminding them.
Keep reminding them, keep reminding the railroad. I was sharing with her there. The railroad folks are they're truculent. They're always angry. And so you'd think they would be good partners and be like, hey, you know what, we're going to send a crew out there and take care of that. Sometimes it takes more than a few people talking about it.
I'm inviting people.
Would it just make sense to sort of go out there one night with a couple of weed whackers
Well,
It's a long stretch of radio,
Yeah.
Well, that's why I
railroad, sorry.
That's why you
They're
have
not running
multiple.
the train anymore though, are they?
So,
Right, you want- they're not running the
no,
train.
and,
Is you have a
yeah,
lot of travelers going through that
Oh, yeah.
area and
Yeah.
some campers.
Yeah.
We've had it for
Yes.
years, we have
Yeah.
to monitor all that.
yeah,
Okay.
So I would just like them, they've done it in the past, to come do it again.
yeah.
If we start taking it over, then I don't know who the liability goes on.
Your City of Ashland Fire Department still has, I think Sydney Jenkins is doing our weed, but yeah, and just make sure you tell him, and then he gets on him, and Sydney's good.
And you guys are all great, yeah.
Yeah,
It's just, you know, we can do some things.
And
Susan?
remember, we have a new application,
I know,
see,
this is good.
click, fix.
I've done that.
Okay.
I'm
You're
on
doing
it.
all the things, you're the A
Well, you
student.
have it, you have it all there.
You practiced your evacuation?
Yes,
Okay.
Ooh, geez.
I have a certificate for you.
Very good.
The Girl Scout.
I was a Girl Scout.
Yeah, right on. You did all the stuff.
I'm really not surprised.
And my father was a firefighter,
Right on.
so I honor
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. Susan, you had something in the back there, and then
Yes,
we probably all
um,
want to go home at some point.
One other thing, if any of you know folks who are older adults who have disabilities
Yeah.
and they can't get out of their home by themselves,
Yeah.
we at Senior and Disability Services have a disaster registry that if you call 541-664-6674 and you ask for the disaster registry, then we can sign you up, and then we work with the emergency response teams, not so ready, but the Southern Oregon Emergency Response Team, so they'll know who you are or who your friends are who need help getting out.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, thanks for sitting through some of this and stuff too. Thanks for all you do.